Hey guys, thanks for checking out Quick Sessions Podcast. My name's Garrett Terrio, coming to you from Houston, Texas, inside Timberline Fitness Studio. And today I'm going to be talking about a couple more documentaries, like I just did in the last podcast. This one is called Generation Iron. Now there's 3 of them, and I'm mostly going to be focusing on 2 and 3. Because number 1 was essentially, a remake of Pumping Iron, which if you don't know what that is, it is when they followed Arnold Schwarzenegger around with, Lou Ferrigno was there, Franco Columbo, and was a very big deal when it came out. It showed what the bodybuilders did, how they did it, routine, diet, what the life was like on the surface, of course. And it was kind of the first big look in at the time, because this is in the 70s, and we don't have YouTube back in the 70s where you can just look at all kinds of different guys. And that's a big deal, as we're going to get into. So Generation Iron, number 2 and 3. I wouldn't say they're spoilers, it's just following these guys around. But if you want to listen or watch it on your own, maybe this podcast isn't the one you should be checking out. So it starts off, I'm mushing them together, but it starts off following Kai Greene. If you don't know Kai Greene, he's won the Arnold Classic a few times. He's been a runner-up Mr. Olympia, which is the Super Bowl of bodybuilding. And he's a very good bodybuilder. Kind of a different cat, but that's fine, right? And it shows him getting into things besides bodybuilding. He's, somewhat lost a passion for it, and he's working on the arts and books and movies and things like that. So, trying to be Arnold, but doing his own thing. Arnold acted, but I don't think he was into the arts too much. So he's kind of one of the main behind-the-scenes focuses of Generation Iron. It keeps coming back to him with each issue that they try to cover in this documentary. And they kind of pair that up with a guy named Calum Von Mager, and he's an Australian bodybuilder who seems like a very nice guy, but the thing you question him on is his passion. Okay, so you have one guy trying to come up in bodybuilding where you're questioning his passion, and there's another guy getting out of it where you don't have to question his passion. He says he's just not as passionate. So it's a lack of passion on both sides, except one's coming up, one's getting out. And it's a very interesting way to think about it, because bodybuilding is something that if you're not passionate, I can't imagine putting yourself through the kind of things and doing the things they have to do without passion. It's not something you just casually do. It's maybe not as intense as powerlifting teams on the pro level as far as the atmosphere, but it's definitely a body harming, food eating, drug using lifestyle that at the very least is not convenient. So anyway, the Generation Iron 2 and 3, they kind of follow these guys in and out, and they tackle different subjects. And subject number 1 that they cover is social media when it comes to bodybuilding. And I'm using bodybuilding as a blanket term, but it's something I always think about when you're on social media and you see these fitness professionals, these pro bodybuilders or fitness models, I guess they'll call themselves. You don't know how certified they are, how even good they were at bodybuilding or being a fitness model or anything like that. So there's a lot of talking heads out there. And the documentary goes over it, but I'm just thinking of a couple. It follows Rich Piana, who his brand is 5%. And he's this big tatted up guy, kind of looks like he'd be the drummer in a rock band. Massive cat, talks about doing steroids, but at the same time is selling you supplements. And a lot of people have a problem with that. I understand. I don't really care, because every bodybuilder that does take steroids, which is essentially every Olympia level bodybuilder takes steroids. That's just the way it is. You can find some amateurs that don't, and that's great for them, but you're never going to be in the men's open bodybuilding division at the Olympia without taking steroids. Now, those guys also take regular supplements. So I don't think a lot of pro bodybuilders are mad at a guy like Rich Piana, but the truth is they all do that anyway. And this guy's admitting to taking steroids, so he's not saying his supplements will make you him. So I don't see what the big deal is with that. And I've watched a couple of his things. I mean, he's not, I probably wouldn't hang out with him. He doesn't seem like my type of guy. He's real intense, real in your face, and that works great for people, and he's clearly made a great business out of it. But I don't think it's enough to dislike the guy. You should see the guy's comment section. I mean, people hate this guy. And maybe I haven't seen the bad videos, but he does seem just like another big talking head who's trying to make money. And I have no problem with someone trying that. It's clearly working for him. But they go around to guys like Jay Cutler's very famous, older guys like Lee Haney they talk about. And he brings up a good point for all this social media bodybuilding, is that a lot of these guys have never stepped on the Mr. Olympia stage. So why are they telling you how to be a bodybuilder? There's only so many guys that have actually walked the walk, so to say. So who are all these talking heads on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook with millions and millions of followers that everybody's listening to? And it's almost like bodybuilding has become more about the marketing than the actual being good at bodybuilding. So that was a big part of, especially the Second Generation Iron documentary, was discussing that piece of it. And Rich Piana, they talked to him one-on-one, and he has a good point. He says it's not just about being good anymore. Yeah, if you're the number one or number two, you can make a living. And even further down, you can make a living doing it. But you're never going to get rich, right? That's where the marketing comes in. That's where sponsors look at you. If you have a big social media following. Hell, this guy, Kalen Von Mager, isn't even a pro at the time. And he just has millions and millions of followers. And he's living off of it. So it just shows you the power of social media, of YouTube, the money that can be made, even if you're not the best at it, which is crazy. Imagine a football player being the highest grossing player who's not even the best at his position. But in bodybuilding, it works because enough people are into fitness and interested in these guys that look like they are a big deal. And most people don't pay enough attention to bodybuilding to actually know who's the best and who's not. And there is inherently a problem with that. And it's probably not what you think I'm going to say. It's a problem for the bodybuilders because the problem is these guys are so big and their physiques are so unattainable for the average Joe that for a lot of people, they have no interest in listening to them. They would rather listen to a guy who's big but is aesthetically closer to something they think they can achieve. And I'm going to call the men's open guys mass monsters because that's what it's all about. It's about being the biggest. And that's something that has not always been true in bodybuilding. For example, in Arnold's day, and we take Arnold as the poster boy, it was about having, they call it a taper, a V, lats, big lats, tiny waist, that kind of thing, where now, you can have these rounded bellies as long as they have abs on top, right? Because you suck in, flex the abs, and you look normal. But you walk around kind of this, you're not bloated. Bloated is not the right word, but you have an expanded midsection. And it drives old bodybuilders nuts. Now, bodybuilding is a situation where everyone thinks their age of bodybuilding was the golden age. So there could be a little hate going around, right? But I think the rise in the men's physique and the classic physique competition has shown that people are tired of these guys just playing who can be the biggest, right? Taking the conditioning aspect, not out of it, but making it a little less important. They're not shaping their bodies anymore. They're just trying to push the limits on how big they can get. And that kind of leads me into the next thing, is the classic physique competition. Now what that is, it's a new division in bodybuilding, and it's growing in popularity because it's the guys that we could see on the street when they're not dieted down. You would think they're big guys, but you wouldn't think they were just out of this world bodybuilders. I mean, you could probably not even take steroids if you had great genetics and really compete in men's physique. So classic physique is basically in between men's physique and open bodybuilding, right? So it's the guys that probably juice up, who are big, right? You can tell they're bodybuilders, but they're not so insanely large that they're in the men's open. These guys are much more aesthetically pleasing. They are, what you would want to look like if you hit the beach, ideally, but still be big. And the way it works is I think there's a height to weight ratio you have to fall in. And this is really taking off because just the pool is bigger, right? As long as you have decent genetics, you can form yourself into a men's classic physique competitor without having to overdo it on the drugs and without having to put on so much mass. You can kind of live like a civilian and still be rewarded for it. Now, the men's open, the big mass monsters, the bodybuilders, they're still the top of the food chain, in that world especially. But you are seeing kind of a shift based on social media and the attendance at these bodybuilding shows that the classic physique is really exploding. So think of it as, regular physique is the beauty contest and the men's open is the bodybuilding contest. This is right in the middle. So, small waist, good midsection guys, but also with some good muscle compounded, right? You actually have to work out and put on some mass to be in the classic physique. So those are the main things they covered. They also went into, the Iranian bodybuilders, the other Middle East bodybuilders that are really blowing up. They are having trouble getting over here to compete because of travel bans. So that is unfortunate because I was watching and these guys are getting after it. They covered a little bit about Algeria and Ghana, those natural bodybuilders coming up. I used to follow one on Instagram. I cannot remember his name, but he essentially made his own gym using scraps like tire rims and things like that. And he even put on his own show in Ghana to try to grow the sport. So that was cool. Generation Iron 1 and 2. It's a good watch if you're interested in seeing some of these guys. See what they think about it. They're each about an hour and a half long. So, you gotta block off some time and actually be interested in it. Now, I knew a lot of these guys from growing up when I worked in supplements in Louisiana. I met a lot of these guys. So I just naturally paid attention because I knew who they were. And I worked with amateur bodybuilders. So I was in the world. I'd go to the shows if my coworkers were competing in them and that kind of stuff. I never did it myself. It's not my thing personally, but I definitely can respect guys doing it. We got a guy here, Max, I think he competes in classic physique. I'll have to ask him. Or maybe he's in regular physique and he's going to get to classic physique. Anyway, it was a good way to catch up because I have been out of the game for a while and I didn't know a lot of these guys. And some of the guys from when I was in college are still in there competing. Some of them obviously are not. But it is interesting. It is something different even if you're not inherently into bodybuilding. The industry itself, I think, is an interesting part of the documentary, and that alone would make it worth checking out. Even if it's for 45 minutes, you don't have to watch it start to finish to understand a lot of what they're talking about. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the sum up. Make sure to check us out on Instagram at Quick Sessions Podcast. And if you haven't, subscribe, rate, review in the Apple Pod Center, also in Google Play and Spotify. Thanks for listening, guys. Catch you next time.